Welcome to Resilience in Life and Leadership with your host, Stephanie Olson, speaker, author, addiction, sexual violence, and resiliency expert. Hello and welcome to Resilience in Life and Leadership. And I have the privilege of introducing to you Cheryl Ilov. Cheryl is an author, speaker, physical therapist, martial artist, dancer, and former chronic pain patient. She published the award-winning and best-selling book Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond in 2016. With over 20 years' experience as a physical therapist in private practice, she has helped thousands of clients recover from pain and injuries by integrating the science of physical therapy with the art of movement. Cheryl believes that everyone can enjoy vibrant health and vitality at every stage of life. She's also a second-degree black belt in an ancient Japanese martial arts, and from her own experience of beginning by training at the tender age of 47 and becoming her teacher's first female black belt 10 years later, she discovered that there is an incredible amount of strength and power in each and every one of us just waiting to be unleashed. Welcome, Cheryl. Well, hello, and welcome to Resilience in Life and Leadership. I am so excited to have Cheryl Ilov, and I love that name. That is fantastic with us. Welcome, Cheryl, to the podcast.
Appreciate it. And it is so nice to be here with you today, Stephanie. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, here we go. You are a pretty amazing and busy woman. You have you're a physical therapist. You are a ninja. I'm just going to call you a ninja. That's what I'm going to do.
Works for me.
Yep. And tell us how you got there.
Well, as you know, every journey has its forks in the roads.
Yes.
And like I like to say, that fork has many tines and many different directions that it takes you in. And I actually got my master's degree in physical therapy when I was in my late 30s. I graduated from physical therapy school.
That's
just
fabulous.
3 months shy of, thank you, 3 months shy of my 40th birthday, even though, and this is a life's lesson already from the get-go, right out of the gate, I was told I was too old to go back to school.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
My goodness. Shame on them.
Well, there were many things I was told that shame on them. And thank goodness I didn't listen to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I did at first. And physical therapy is my second career. My first career was a respiratory therapist. So I was working in the hospitals, critical care, life support equipment, resuscitation team. It was very intense.
I'll bet.
Oh yeah, it was a rewarding career, but it was very intense. And, you know, for some crazy reason, I decided that maybe I wanted another career path, but I still kind of enjoyed the medical field to a certain degree. So I decided physical therapy would be a wonderful path for me to take. As a dancer, I started dancing late in life, at the age of 19 or 20. And I started thank you. I do everything late. I mean,
I want to get back to that because that's really important. I want to really hit home on that late in life thing. So we'll come back to that, but
let me tell you, and I assure you, this late in life thing just follows me wherever I go. So you're going to get a lot more of that.
Love it. That's inspiring. I love that.
Thanks. So I'm actually from a small steel town in Western Pennsylvania, which is why I now live in Denver, Colorado.
Yep.
And there's a reason. And, you know, a friend of mine, a college roommate, and I, just a few months, a few days after we graduated, we packed up my Ford Maverick and drove out to Denver to seek our fame and fortune. It was crazy. We had no idea what we were doing, but it was like, hey, let's go to Denver. And she's like, okay. So we did. And, you know, when I got there and I continued my ballet training, which I'd only had about a year under my belt, I kept taking ballet classes. And then I discovered Pilates. So I got really heavy into Pilates and life was going pretty well for me, you know, going to Pilates, ballet class, had a good job, skied on my days off too, you know, the Rocky Mountains. Hello, great skiing.
Right.
And then I kind of had the rug pulled out from underneath me. I started to get these little twinges in my low back. So I did the sensible thing. I ignored them, right? Thinking it would go away.
Absolutely.
What else would you do?
I can't imagine.
Well, it didn't work.
Okay.
So then those twinges started to turn into like, really bad tightness and almost pain. So I did stretch. I did hot packs, trying to take care of it myself. And that worked about as well as the stretching.
Wow.
In a matter of just a few short months, I went from being a healthy, vibrant, active young woman to a chronic pain patient.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And I'm telling you, the pain was indescribably excruciating. And it shot across my low back, down both hips and buttocks, down my legs, and all the way down to the tip of my toe in one of my legs, making work just almost impossible. I had to really, as a respiratory therapist, you're moving equipment, you're running all over the hospital. Yeah. And bending over patients. And, I had to cut back on my hours. So instead of going to Pilates and ballet and skiing, I was going to doctor's appointments, physical therapy appointments, massage therapy. I was taking all of the medications they gave me, pain pills, muscle relaxers, anti-inflammatories. I was doing all the stretches and the exercises, everything that the physical therapists told me to do. Instead of getting better, I was getting worse.
Wow.
And I spiraled down to the point where it was so bad. I had one of my doctors tell me I would never be able to do my laundry and my grocery shopping all in the same day because the arthritis in my spine was so severe, I would end up being bedridden.
Oh my gosh. So it was arthritis that was the problem?
Well, probably not, but that's what they were diagnosing me. And that's another little point I want to make. When people put a label on you, don't accept it. If it doesn't go, if it doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't feel right, there's a reason why it doesn't. And it was like, oh my gosh, this chronic pain patient. And I looked at this woman and I said, you don't understand. I'm planning on going back to ballet class. And she laughed in my face.
She did. Oh my gosh.
Think about that.
Oh, how devastating.
Isn't that horrible? It's just a horrible thing. Even to this day, I can't believe anybody would do that. And she said, you can't do ballet. You're never going to have the life that you had before. You're never going to have the life that you want. And forget about ballet. Oh, it gets worse. And she said, besides, you are way too old for ballet class.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
This was a doctor?
Yes.
Oh my
One of my caregivers.
Oh my gosh. I cannot even imagine hearing that. That must have been really just like a punch in the gut.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it felt like. And I was almost like confused, like I couldn't process the information. And then she told me to start applying for disability because I was going to need it, someday soon. And she knew I was planning on trying to get into physical therapy school. It was one of my goals. And she says, you better forget about physical therapy school because you are too broken. You cannot do the work. And even if you could, you are way too old to go back to school.
Oh my gosh. Okay. How old was this woman?
I don't know. I'm guessing she was like 50-ish. And I was 36 at the time.
Wow. Very bitter woman, jealous or something.
I don't know. There was something.
Awful. Wow. That is horrible.
Okay. Isn't that a horrible thing? So
I am already glad. I am already glad that whether you listened to it initially or not, you just pushed that away because what a debilitating thing to say to somebody.
She took away my hope. She shattered my spirit. She destroyed my dreams. What else could you do to somebody if you want to just take them down from the inside out? Right. So I went home, I hit rock bottom, and it was just a few days later, it was like, I heard this in my head. No, I am not going to live like this. Obviously, I'm going to have to figure this out for myself because they're not helping me. They're making it worse.
Wow. Yes.
So that was this epiphany that came out of nowhere. Plus, I think I maybe always had a bit of a fighting spirit inside of me.
I could see that. Yes.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. And that's another point I want to make is that most of us do. We just don't know how to access
That's right.
that fighting spirit. So
That's right.
so I just decided I fired all of my caregivers, much to their chagrin, because they felt I needed them to take care of me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And they weren't doing a very good job, were they?
My goodness. That's amazing.
And I stopped taking all the medications. I stopped doing all the stupid, and I can say it because I'm a PT, stupid stretches and exercises they were giving me to do, and because they weren't working. So I went back to, it's like I knew movement enough, or I should have, I felt this, that I could figure it out on my own and figure out what was making me feel worse and what would make the pain go away. So I just went back to the basics of how we learned how to move when we were children. Nobody said when we were babies, here are these little baby barbells, do these exercises, build up those biceps, then put one hand here, and this is how you roll over. We learned how to move through exploration, exploring our movements, our bodies, our environment. That's how we learned. So that's what I did. I did that, really, paid attention to the sensations in my body, what I was feeling, what I was thinking, what I was doing. And I added acupuncture.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have heard amazing things about acupuncture, but so tell me, how did that instantly relieve pain, or what did that look like?
It took the pain down to a level that was manageable. I mean, even when I went to the acupuncturist for the first time, Stephanie, this is really kind of funny and really a little embarrassing, because I wanted to go wearing a disguise. I didn't want anybody to see me, because this is on a very busy main street that was not far from the hospital that I was working at. And I went right after my shift. I was wearing my bright green scrubs that identified me as a respiratory therapist in that department. So I'm like, if other people who I work with are driving past, they'll see me walking into this clinic. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is how desperate I was.
Yeah.
And, the first time he was a lovely man. He was Korean and did, like a Korean technique. And, the needles were a little uncomfortable, but when he put one needle all the way into my hip joint, and he did what I call the twizzle, and he started twirling like this little needle. And I mean, it's not a real big needle, but you could feel it deep in there. Wow. And I was hyperventilating, and I kept saying, I'm not going to pass out. Yeah. I'm not going to pass out. And he said, oh, you'd be surprised how many people do. And I said, no, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Not coming from your mouth right now.
It was just awful. Oh. And I went home, and I had this horrible burning sensation in my hip. And I thought, oh my God, as soon as I go home, I'm going to have to take a pain pill. And I lay down on the couch, and, I just started to cry a little bit. And my husband says, I'll go get you one of your pills. I said, okay. When he came back down, I was sitting up, and I said, I'm fine.
Wow.
And he just like, are you sure? And I said, I feel fine. And I was able to move around a little bit more. And I had the same type of reaction after the second one. And then all of a sudden, I never had that reaction again. It's crazy. This is the first time I've really talked about this, since I did that. And that was 30 years ago. But I never really had a reaction like that before. And, actually the acupuncturist was kind of pleased. He says, that's actually good. Wow. Because he says, that means that we're getting to the root of the problem. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, okay, in 2 sessions, you have gotten to the root of the problem.
Unbelievable.
In 2.5 years, what was I doing? And just, so the medical experts, and I can say this again because I am.
Because you are one. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't always have the answers.
Right.
And if you're not getting better, if it's not working for you, there are always alternative things to try. So basically it took about 8 or 9 months, I was completely pain free. I was a little
Wow.
stiff. I was out of shape. It was time to start getting back into trying ballet class. And that was when I got the letter that I was accepted into the physical therapy program
Wow.
at Colorado University. And I would be starting school in like 6 weeks. And it was like, oh God, now what do I do?
Wow. Yes.
So I went to physical therapy school and I graduated 3 months shy of my 40th birthday. So I
Oh,
wasn't too old after all.
congratulations. That is unbelievable. And I'm still very stunned that anybody would tell you otherwise.
Hmm.
And I think there is such a stigma with, and
Hmm.
as women, aging and all of the things that come with it. And it can be very, very difficult. And I think then to have somebody tell you you're too old to do anything is absolutely
Horrible.
demoralizing.
It is
Yes.
demoralizing. And that,
Yeah.
I'm so glad it happened
Yeah.
because it launched me on this, trajectory that said,
Yes.
not on my watch. This is not
Yes.
the way it's going to be. And interestingly enough, when I finished physical therapy school and I started working as a PT, I hated it.
Really? Oh no. What a
I did.
bummer.
Total bummer. Such a bummer. And the job market when I finished school was actually terrible for physical therapists
Oh
at the time, which
gosh.
was like my timing is always a little bit off, or maybe it's not, maybe it's meant to be.
Right.
So after struggling in this really horrible work environment for 2.5 years, it was like, you know what? I was sitting in this horrible, boring meeting. And I had another one of those epiphanies. It's like, you know
Mm.
what? There are people out there teaching Pilates who don't really know what they're doing. I had taken 2 professional trainings after I finished PT school for Pilates. I had been studying Pilates for myself for 13 years at that point, and I thought, I can open up my own place and just
Wow.
specialize in Pilates-based rehab and conditioning. So that's what I did. And I did that. And I ran my own, I had my own office for 18 years. I closed my
Wow.
practice in May of 2017. And then I just relaunched it online recently, just this past
Oh,
May.
that's fantastic. I love that. So, what was the difference between what you were doing with physical therapy and what you did with a Pilates based therapy program?
Great question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
When I was, doing the traditional PT, there's an incredible amount of pressure on the therapists to, produce, your productivity is
Mm.
huge. You have to a certain amount of productivity in your
Hmm.
numbers, which means that a lot of times as you're trying to get these numbers and your productivity to the level of what the facility you're working for wants, that means you're cutting out time. So that means that you're delegating a lot of the hands-on and the physical work to your physical therapy assistant, to
Hmm.
your the aides. You're doing a lot of the paperwork, the bureaucracy, and this is the diagnosis. This is the, what is it, the ICD-9 code.
Hmm.
This is the protocol. You get 4 visits. These are your limitations. It was just
Okay.
terrible. And from my experience on the receiving end of PT, it obviously didn't, I mean, it helped a little bit for me as an outpatient, but it didn't really work that well for me
Hmm.
until
Hmm.
I went and just figured it out on my own. So basically, I had this big Pilates background. I had the background and the experience of being a chronic pain patient. So you
Right.
definitely have that
Right.
empathy, and boy, could I
Right.
relate. And I had the education of being a PT. So I was, and the dance background. So I was able to
Yeah.
weave it all together to integrate these skills. And it's interesting, I did not take insurance. It was
Okay.
cash only
Hmm.
practice. So right there, I cut out a lot of
Absolutely.
bureaucracy and limitations.
Right.
And a lot of people that came to me, they either failed traditional PT or they went to their PT and they got improvement but then they were cut off at a certain point because the insurance says you're good enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And they weren't happy with their level of function. They wanted more. So they would come to me. Then the third type of client that I would have were people like me who had experienced you're never going to get any better.
Wow.
You have to figure out how to live with this.
Wow.
And, so I got the desperate cases, and I'll never forget one of my first clients, bless her heart, lovely lady. And she had gone through the gamut. Oh my gosh. And she was dropped a lot of times, for various reasons. I could tell that, they just dismissed her for, either being a complainer and, and I got that a lot too.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until about maybe her third or fourth visit that she came to me, and she was, had tears in her eyes, and she says, "Thank you so much. I feel so much better. You were my last hope."
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And when she told me that, all I could think of was, "Oh, thank you for not telling me that from the very beginning."
No pressure. Right.
I couldn't have handled the pressure, but as a clinician, as a practitioner, and I would tell my clients, I am not going to fix you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am going to teach you how to fix yourself.
Right.
So right away, I took that patriarchy, out of it. And here, you have the power. I'm giving you your power back.
That's
that you've lost through this experience.
Right. Oh, that is amazing. And I can really relate to a lot of what you're saying because I recently ruptured my Achilles tendon.
Oh,
yeah. No, that sucks. That just,
like a Hoover.
Yeah, exactly. And had really been doing a tremendous amount, just really getting, I've always loved to work out, but the whole, you turn 50 or whatever, all those things. And so I had recently just found again, working out and really getting to this place where, yes, okay, I'm on a roll, and a fun family tennis game.
Oh, fun. Oh,
it was fun until until that moment. But what I think has been so interesting is just the getting that strength back and working, because at first you lose all of your independence, your ability to walk. I was on my right foot, so my ability to drive. And that was just very difficult. But with a lot of that has come some pain in my back and and it's all of this stuff. And so I can't wait to get to the online part so I can learn how I can receive your wisdom and brilliance, because that it does so much more damage than just the physical. The emotional depression and isolation is horrible. Yeah.
It really does a number on your head. And then you're looking at all the things that you used to be able to do.
Right.
You're looking at, you've lost that. Well, of course, with the pandemic, we've all lost human contact, which is what we really need. But, one of the things that I missed so much, ballet was such an important, and still is such an important part of my life, that I didn't have that interaction, that social interaction with my friends in ballet class.
Right.
And, the feeling of sharing a passion with a group of people who feel the same way about this as you do, and whether it's, playing pickleball or, tennis or dance or whatever it is, swimming, whatever it is, of sharing that, it's a feeling of community. And you lose that, and you almost feel, even more devastated and isolated. And the depression is just terrible. And, I was able to walk, of course, and I would walk my dogs up on the High Line Canal. We lived in a townhouse at the time, and this wonderful walking path. And I would see one of my ballet sisters, I call them my bar buddies, I would
Yeah.
always see, one of my bar buddies lived in the neighborhood and she would be jogging, although why anybody would want to run, I don't know. But, she
I
would
was a runner, yes.
really, oh,
Yeah.
uh, but I would see her running and, she would always stop and talk to me and you could just see it on her face, the
Yeah.
sympathy and how she
Yeah.
felt so sorry for me. And that was even harder to
Yep.
take, to
Yep.
see her. And I remember when I did finally get back to ballet class and she said, I didn't think we'd ever see you again.
Oh, wow.
And so
Wow.
I really understand, but
Yeah.
let me tell you, you can heal from anything. Our
Yeah.
bodies have an incredible capacity to heal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. This is just so amazing. So now you have this incredible studio and you're telling people you are not done. And I think that's so important because people do need that hope
Yeah.
and they do need to know that this is not necessarily how I have to live
Right.
the rest of my life.
Right.
Yes. And you can relate because you've
Oh
been
yeah.
there.
Been there
Right.
more times than once.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
now tell me about martial arts
Okay.
because I can see behind you, you got all these amazing things going on. Yes.
Yeah. Got my
So,
toys.
so from ballet to belts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I love that. And that's exactly kind of what happened. And it starts out with another one of those tough stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm running my own practice, right? I got myself back into shape after the pain and the 2 years of sitting on my butt in PT
Yeah.
school, which I always found fascinating. That a program who teaches people who are already very physical and committed to physical activity.
Right.
You
Right.
take these same people and you sit them down and make them sit still for 2 years in a row. It's like, it made no sense to me. But anyhow, I was 44. I was, life was good. I was feeling good. I was looking good. I was happy. Things were just really going great. And then I had the rug pulled out from underneath me again.
Wow.
And this was a tough one. I walked into a doctor's office. It was someone I hadn't known, I'd never been to this person before. So I walked in as a healthy, vibrant 44-year-old woman on top of the world.
Yeah.
And I walked out a statistic.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a tough one.
Mm.
And, the shocks, even now, it still kind of shocks me. It's like, I can't believe that really happened, and the problem is when I tried to get help and I tried to report it just so, I was incensed that this could happen to anybody. And if it happened to me with a medical background, pretty, medically savvy, I know that I wasn't the first woman. I was smart enough.
So sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, but it does happen. And it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting. I have actually recently talked to several women on my podcast that have been sexually, abused for like periods of time from like psychiatrists. Horrible stories. It does happen. But when I tried to report it and get help, and I wanted to make sure that this person, could be stopped so no other woman had to go through this.
Right.
Even the people that were closest to me shut me down.
Really? What?
My husband, I started with my very best friend.
Okay.
And she just said, oh, that can't possibly happen. And, you're always complaining. You're so melodramatic and blah, blah, blah. And I says, look, you don't understand. Now, this was my best friend of many years.
Wow.
And she says, all you ever do is complain.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know, this is my best and dearest friend. And she says, other people have real problems and you need to listen to them. And she said, your responsibility is to me. And I'm like, okay, I knew that this friendship was kind of on the rocks or not, and that was kind of the final straw. So then I tried my husband.
Wow.
Oh, so many wows. Thank you for that. It validates me.
Oh my gosh.
And then I tried talking to my husband, who was going like, this is girl stuff. You need to talk to Kathleen, my girlfriend. And I'm like, okay. So, and then I couldn't tell, and, tried telling a few other people and got the same thing. I was working in a clinic at the time, doing some side work, in addition to my own place. And, they're like, that can't happen. You need to really search your memory. There's something, you were abused as a child. This happened to you. And I'm like, well, I almost fell off a roller coaster when I was a little girl, but that turned out okay. And no, there's nothing that I can ever think of that happened. So basically, I realized why women don't complain or don't
That's
report.
why they don't report.
That's exactly why they don't.
Exactly it. And it's, that is, I was actually just talking to somebody about this, and we have got to do better.
Yeah.
We have got to do better. We have to be active listeners. We have to be willing to, really, really bad things happen to people. And we have to be willing to let that be a thing, that despite our shock of the situation, we have to be willing to listen and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That was not your fault.
Exactly. And I think it's getting to be a little bit more, people are starting to be more receptive to that.
Yeah.
But I think what happened is other women don't want to hear it because they don't want to even believe that they could possibly be in that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And to be that vulnerable and to have that happen.
Right.
And they just don't want to believe that it's possible. So basically, I just did what a lot of women do. And it's really interesting because when people treat you like that, the way I was treated afterwards was just as traumatic, maybe even more so than the event itself, to be that invalidated. And you understand, I mean, you've got a background and a history. And, the worst thing you can do is to be ignored.
Yes. Yeah.
When that doctor told me, I would never be able to do anything again, I was too old and decrepit.
Right.
At least she gave me something. She didn't ignore me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I just stuffed it deep inside of me, put a big old smile on my face and pretended that everything was going to be fine. And as we all know, eventually it comes blah, spewing out of you eventually at some point.
Right. At some point, if you don't grieve something and you don't deal with that pain and that hurt, you will at some point. Yeah.
And, I used to be really good about getting regular massages and stuff. And it was like, ain't doing that anymore. I just, often would go to, I had male massage therapists. They were wonderful, but I couldn't face it. I just couldn't do it. And I needed some body work. And one of my clients told me about this guy. His name was Mark. And he does, he's an acupuncturist, but he does shiatsu. She wouldn't let him do acupuncture because she was afraid of it. But she says, oh, he finds the spots. He does this wonderful shiatsu. And of course, I say, are you allowed to stay fully clothed? And she goes, oh yeah, you're fully clothed at the time. And I thought, I'll try this guy because I was experiencing a lot of, as you can imagine, aches and pains and stress and muscles. Yeah. And it's horrible. So, I met this guy and he did a shiatsu session, and, I was telling him about other things that were going on. He says, I could really help you a lot more if you'd let me do some acupuncture. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I says, let me think about it. So eventually I did let him do acupuncture on me. And the very first time he put needles in my legs, he got a very far away look on his face and a very thoughtful expression. And he said to me, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things.
I love that.
I didn't.
Well, you weren't in the right spot at that time.
No, I wasn't. And I was like, oh no, I can't believe this. Who in their right mind actually thinks like this, let alone says it out loud? And I'm looking for my purse going, I'm going to just grab my purse and run. But I couldn't because I was literally pinned to the table. Yeah. So he had a captive audience and I couldn't move. And I was just so like dumbfounded. He had a clinic, or his clinic was right next door to a dojo, his martial arts school. It's like a duplex. And I was like, well, thank you very much, but I think I'll save my killer legs for ballet class. Going, get me out of here. This guy's nuts. And, I thought about maybe never going back to him, but I did, because I liked him. And for some reason, we hit it off. And I was very comfortable with him. But every single time I went to his clinic for a treatment, he would go on and on and on about the art of the ninja and his martial art, and women are so good at it. And, oh, you would love it. And, and I'm like, just shut up, put the needles in and leave the room and let me relax. Well, eventually it took another year. And eventually he found, I was triggered again. And, full blown PTSD cray.
Yeah.
And I went to, and I had stopped seeing him for a while. And I went to Marcus, like, nobody listened to me, and I just knew he would. Yeah. And I went to him and I just told him the whole story, and he's okay. So he started treating me for the symptoms of the PTSD, and his campaign to get me on the mat went into high gear.
Wow. I'll bet.
And he kept saying, there is such a healing power in martial arts, and this could really help you heal. Right. Please come and take some classes with me. Please let me help you. Let me teach you some skills. Let me do this. And I kept saying no, because I couldn't, understand how hanging out. Yeah. In a smelly dojo with a bunch of hairy, sweaty men smacking people around is going to make me feel any better. And he, just try it. No. Well, it took him 2 years to wear me down. So it was 3 years. Yeah. And they call me stubborn, right? Yeah. He wouldn't give up. He wouldn't give up. So I finally said, okay, I will take a few classes, because I know I need some self-defense techniques.
Yeah.
Take a few classes, learn some techniques, prove to you how much I'm going to hate it, and then I will quit.
Oh, I bet that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. 10 years later, I became his first female black belt.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Love that. Oh my goodness.
It still shocks me. I mean, I was at the dojo earlier today. I did noon class, and I'm standing there with that, belt and the silver, etching and embroidery. And I'm like, I still can't believe, that I did that. And of course, all these years later, we're still Mark's still teaching me. I'm still training, and, the rest is history.
And the accomplishment and the confidence that you must just consistently receive must be amazing. I love that.
It is amazing. And once I hit about the level of brown belt, I'm pretty sure it was brown belt. Okay. I said, I want to start teaching women, because, even as you're climbing up the ranks, which is another thing, I never wanted the black belt. I never even wanted a yellow belt.
Like, you didn't want it, or that wasn't your goal?
It wasn't my goal. I didn't want it, because I wasn't going to hang out there long enough. I was just going to, I paid my 1 month tuition fee, and I figured 1 month, I'm good. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But no, that didn't happen. And I surprised myself by paying the second month's tuition, and then the third month's tuition. And like I said, I didn't even want the white belt, but it came with the uniform.
Yeah. You had to have that.
I had to have that. Yes, it was part of the dress code. So after 3 months in the dojo, one of the guys started badgering me. And you have to understand, I was the only woman a lot of times. I was the only woman. So this wasn't one of those dojos like Taekwondo or some of the karate schools that have really big classes, lots of girls. And it wasn't like that. Yeah. The kids class had a lot of little girls, but not in the adult class. So, there I am, this aging ballet dancer, princess, hanging out with a bunch of these men, going, how do I even talk to them? Because I haven't even had male friends in so many years. At that point, I'd been married for 17 years. And it's like, how do I talk to them? Yeah. And they're looking like, why is this person leaving the mat to go fix her lipstick? So
because you gotta look good even when you're kicking some serious badoosh,
I'm telling you,
gotta
it
look
was very
good.
important.
That's right.
So it was finally 3 months in, and one of the guys kept badgering me to test for my yellow belt. And I thought, if it'll shut you up, I'll do it. So I did. And then 3 months later, same guy badgering me again. It's like, okay. So I tested for my 2nd-degree yellow belt.
Wow.
And about 3 months later, I'm looking at the belt rack. I'm looking at all of my techniques and my notes. And I said to Mark, my sensei, I said, I think I can test for my orange belt. It was my idea, and nobody,
Wow.
And then it just started to go from there.
I love that. That is so incredible. What an amazing story. I want to camp a little bit on that aging thing.
Sure.
Because I think that, just personally, aging was very hard for me, or has been. I'm over the hump of the difficulties. Like I've grown to embrace it and grown to embrace my age, but it took me a long time to do that. And I think and I would look at all of these 20 somethings and think, oh, if I had just started then, if I had just done that then. So I would love you to speak to that, because that is such a lie.
It is such a lie. And I told myself that lie for years.
Yeah.
I bought the lie. I think I might have even written the lie.
Yeah.
And
was that you?
Yeah, that was me. So yeah, sorry about that, ladies.
Thanks a lot.
Well, and that's why this is my penance. I'm trying to make up for it. But it's really funny because even, when I was in my mid to late 20s, I felt like I was old.
Yes.
And in my 30s, I felt like ancient.
Ancient, yes.
And, and then, I'd be working with, the elderly, like in the hospital. I was still a respiratory therapist. And especially the little old women would look up at me and say, oh, honey, don't ever get old. And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, how am I going to avoid that?
There's like one way to avoid it.
And I didn't mind. No, I didn't want to go that way. And so it's like, how would I do this? And I felt old. I felt fat. I felt, like stupid, that I couldn't do anything. And I think a lot of it was, and I'm not saying the way I was raised, but, the body judgment started coming at a very young age for all of us, and I grew up with 4 sisters and 3 girl cousins. And, it's like, we wouldn't really pick on each other, but it was just, hey, I noticed this, I noticed that. And then, of course, getting into ballet, even as an adult, there's mirrors everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, there's a lot of judgment everywhere.
Yeah.
And even as an adult, as a beginning student, as I was starting to advance through those ranks too, there was a lot more. You would hear it, your thighs are way too heavy. Your hips are so wide. Well, I'm sorry, I picked the wrong family. It's not my, rather than embracing, the curves and the lack of where, some curves,
right.
And it was just not that body acceptance, and it was just, I'd beat myself up. And then that best friend who I did break up with, she was the master at it. And we, even one time my husband said, then there was another woman that we were good friends with, who was one of our ballet teachers. And, I was kind of down on myself once. I'm looking at what I look like. And he says, why don't you and Kathleen and, just call Kathleen and Linnell and get together and you can talk about how, all of your imperfections.
Oh, well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Well, but that's what we would do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we would do. And, I tell people that, it was in my mid 30s when my chronic pain syndrome hit.
Yeah.
So for those 2.5 years that I couldn't do anything, you bet I felt old.
Right.
And I did gain a lot of weight because I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And then, finally it was like my 30s were terrible. And then it was like, okay, I got myself out of that. And then I was in my early 40s, life was looking good, and I got smacked down again.
Right.
So I was in survival mode. and I didn't even know anything, about it. And I lost a lot of weight because I lost my
Wow.
appetite. The stress was so bad. And then I looked terrible then. But for some reason, I felt like if I could make it to 50,
Mhm.
I would be okay. And I really didn't think I would make it to 50. And a lot of my girlfriends, once they realized, my ballet sisters found
Yeah.
out the whole story and what
Yeah.
had happened. And then I finally was getting the support that I craved a long time ago, but I got a lot more support from the dojo than I got from anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, not everybody knew the story, only
Sure.
Mark and one
Sure.
other guy, but I mean, they were my buddies.
Wow. That's
They were
amazing.
my non-judgmental friends that
Mhm.
I could depend on.
That's right.
And the first time I got a phone call from one of them, like they didn't include me. Hey, you want to go out for a beer? Or hey, we're going to
Mm.
meet on Sunday for training. Hey, you want to do this? The first time one of them called me and I'm going, well, this is uncomfortable. So I pick up the phone and, he's like, hey, blah, you want to meet? We're going to train, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And then he says, okay, see ya. And he hung up. And I'm sitting there holding the phone going, wow, where's the drama? I
Yeah.
had no idea that you could have a complete conversation in 30 seconds with a few monosyllables, grunts, and a
Yeah.
see ya.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
That
was it.
that is so I love that. I love that. So I just have to tell you the story because you will appreciate this. So recovering alcoholic, spent a lot of time in AA meetings, and so many women love to be in the women meetings because
Oh,
there's so much womenhood and crying. There's a lot of crying in women's AA meetings, a whole lot. And my favorite meetings were the meetings with like the old guys, the guys who had been sober for a long time and they're just like, this is what I got to do. And I had this problem, I fixed it, I'm moving on. It was just so cut and dry and no drama. And I loved those men because they just put it in perspective and just, it was what it was.
and that's what I loved about him. It was just like,
Yes.
wow, these are the facts, just the facts, ma'am.
Yes,
They were
exactly.
so, I hate to use the word transparent, but they were an open book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I know there's a lot of women's networking groups and all these
Yeah.
women's meetings and, a lot of podcasts are women only. And it's like, oh gosh, I need my man fix. I mean,
Yeah.
I balance out the energy so much.
Yeah.
And, I'm not someone who really loves feelings and I like to pretend I have none. So don't make me talk about them.
You
Yeah.
and I are way too much alike. I don't know.
Isn't
I
it beautiful?
It's so funny because I mean, I adore women. So
I
I'm
know.
not going there, but I'm not a crier. And I don't
Mhm.
know what happened in my life, whatever. I just can't. I just don't cry. It's got to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
I lost my dad in 2018, cried then.
Aw.
The only other times that I have cried recently is 2 episodes of The Office. Yes, very touching, emotional episodes of The Office. And yeah,
Oh.
I think that's it.
Well, I do it, but that is what I consider that's what the car is for.
Yes. Okay. Very
'Cause
good. I like that.
yeah. And even in physical therapy school, I would cry on the way to school. It would take me 20 minutes to get to the medical center. So I would cry and I would time it so, I'd be able to pull myself together before I had to park and see everybody.
Yeah.
On the way home, traffic was worse. So I had like 40, 45 minutes. So I had plenty of time to just let it rip until it's like, okay, 10 minutes before I'm home so I can pull myself together. So my husband wouldn't know that I was crying because I hated every single day of
Yeah.
physical therapy school and stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I really like to have the male energy and,
Yeah.
I love my ballet sisters and my blood
Oh,
sisters,
I
but
adore women.
yeah,
Yeah.
but man, I sure do love being around guys because you
Yeah.
just gotta love them. You just gotta love them.
Yeah.
But
It's
so yeah,
fun.
getting
It's great.
back to the aging thing though,
Yes. Thank
once
you.
sure, once I figured if I hit 50, life would change. And I don't know if I planted that seed in my brain and that's why it happened. But even on my 50th birthday, my ballet friends, I mean, because they knew, I was also looking forward to menopause, believe it or not. And there's reasons I had horrible,
Oh,
horrible
sure.
problems. And
Yeah.
it's like, let's just get this over
Let's
with.
just go over the hump right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you ever heard of the Red Hat Society?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, when I heard of it, it's like, the person who organizes it gets to be the queen. But, you have to be 50 to join, and 50 because you're old. And I'm going, okay,
Right.
number one, 50
Right.
and not going to be old.
Right.
Number two, I do not want a red hat. I want a tiara. I earned it. I deserved it. And I wanted a tiara.
That's fantastic.
So my friends got together. There were probably about 30 of us. We got a banquet room at this restaurant downtown Denver. And my friends, we all got together, had a big birthday party for me. And one of my friends actually went online and bought red tiaras. So all the ladies who were over 50 and over, the three of them had their little red tiaras.
I love that.
It was so precious. And then they had a crowning ceremony where I had my red tiara, and it was just such a special, special thing. And I thought, you know what? Life is going to be good. And my 50s were so fantastic, so wonderful.
Wait, you're not out of your 50s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You are amazing. You're just like, you're my total inspiration.
Thank you.
Are you willing to say how old you are?
I sure am.
I love that. How old are you?
65.
Wow. Okay. You're throwing me for a loop now. You look, wow. You don't look even 50.
Oh God, I love you. You're my best friend, my new BFF. I'm looking for one since I fired the other one.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a good one.
I do believe that. I know that. Well, I have to admit though, the lighting down here is pretty good. I worked on that, but
wow, I'm just that's not, and do not understand. Looks are not all the that, but I think it does help when you take care of yourself and you feel good about yourself and you look amazing, because that's what it's all about. And
I remember the very first day that I realized, remember I told you that mantra, you're fat, ugly, and stupid.
Yeah.
I remember the day that I found out that I wasn't.
Wow.
And I was 50. I just turned 50, or it was right around the time I was turning 50. And it was like, okay, here we go. And it was almost like, I think a lot happens, I've already been through so much.
Yeah.
And, and look at me, I was still standing. So it was like, game on.
Yeah.
And I made it to 50. And I told all of my friends that I wasn't going to be inhibited like I was before. And they went, oh, geez, this is really a problem. So you just don't really care as much about what people think of you, and you stop perseverating on how you look, and you start perseverating on how you feel and how you move. And, it's mindset. It's mindset. And we are all getting older.
Yes.
And getting older is inevitable, but being old is a choice. And it's just finding those really simple things in life that give us pleasure and joy. And, look at all the things you've done, and, how far you've come, and how much more you have to offer people.
Yeah.
It's just great.
That is fantastic. I'm personally very inspired, because I think there is this limit we put on ourselves.
Yep.
And, I shouldn't start that because I'm 53. And so I don't want to start that. And I think that we do those things, and what a shame. I mean, it's a tragedy if we choose to do that.
Well, and it's not just that we do it to ourselves. I think we do it to ourselves because we hear it from society so much. And we hear it over and over and over again. And then, you hear those messages.
Yeah.
And, if you once we hear it enough, we believe it.
Right. Exactly.
Even if it goes against our inherent belief system.
Right.
our brain is hearing those messages. It's not judging if it's right or wrong, or if it's true or false. It just keeps programming it like a computer. And then we believe it, and then we become it. But if I can share another little secret with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So don't tell anybody. This will be our little secret.
I will not say a word.
Okay. So at the age when I turned 58, I decided it was time to start engaging in more age-appropriate activities.
Okay. What does that mean?
I started pole dancing.
Oh, that is a good workout.
Hello. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. It's so hard.
Wow. Good for you. I think that's fantastic. So do you do that at a gym, or that sounds like a stupid question?
Wow. You know what?
A loaded question right there. Okay.
You know, so for all of those gym owners who are listening to this episode are going to say, wow, that would be a fantastic way to increase, clientele, or to, get people in the gym. It's a pole studio. So there are pole studios all over the place. I'm sure you can find them in your area. Just look up, pole studios near me. And, they call it fit pole sport, but it's pole dancing, but it is really, and I did it kind of on a dare from, a friend of mine a much younger friend. You should try it. And I'm like, let's try it together. And she said, no. So it's like,
that's not fair.
No, it was not. So I tried it, and it was like really kind of fun. And then after a certain, period of time, then you start doing, like, they call them tricks, but I refuse to call them that. I call them techniques.
Very good.
Where you're going upside down and really doing these acrobatic stuff.
Yeah.
And I almost quit then, but I found a coach who's really good. So I do privates every now and again, so she could get me over that hump.
Wow.
But this woman, I love her to death. She actually talked me into competing.
Is that right? I did not know they had competitions for that.
You should see some of these.
Wow.
These people are amazing. Men too. There are,
because it is very athletic.
Incredibly athletic.
Yeah.
And you're trying to do these things and look like you're enjoying it and look graceful too at the same time. But yeah, and you do have a little bit of sexy going on.
Sure.
But so I was in 2019. So I was 63. So I competed they break the divisions per age and level of, ability. And so there were only 3 of us in my division. So it was actually,
did you
yes,
win
I
in your
did.
Division? Yes, you did.
So I'm a gold medalist pole dancer.
Wow. That is something to hang your hat on, actually. I think that's fabulous.
I thought so too. And I also was, there was a part of me that said, oh, thank goodness my mother's not around to see this.
Yeah. Well, not everything needs to be shared with mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, wow, that is amazing. And so today, the pain is gone, is manageable.
I have no pain.
Wow.
I have no pain. I do wake up sometimes going, why did I do that to myself yesterday?
Yeah.
Because I have a tendency to overdo, some days I'll actually on Mondays, I'll do a pole class, and then I drive to the dojo and do a martial arts class, and then I sit in a hot bathtub for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I push myself because I can.
Yeah.
I push myself because it's not that I want to be a role model for people, but I do want people to understand that, considering where I was and where I am now, if I had known that in my 30s and in my 40s, where I would be at this point in my life, I would have enjoyed the journey a lot more. I wouldn't have worried as much. I would have trusted myself. I would have listened to my gut instincts, and go back to that time when you're a little girl. And, my childhood was pretty good, I think. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And there were a lot of wonderful things that happened and a lot of things that weren't. But go back to the spirit of that little girl that loved, playing in the yard, exploring things, twirling around and pretending she was a dancer, and, things like that. And playing with your friends, playing in the dirt, play more, work less.
Yes. I love that. And did you ever get the opportunity to go back to that original doctor who said you will
No,
never
no,
in your mind?
no, no. In my mind, I did. And I did go back in my mind a couple of times, and I
Yeah.
slapped her across slapped her upside
Yeah.
the head.
Yeah.
And then another time I went back and I said, you know what? Thanks for saying that, because you were absolutely right. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it did come true. I cannot do my grocery shopping and my laundry all in the same day, because at least 3 days a week, at least, I would take a professional hour and a half, professional level ballet class, drive across town, change my clothes, hour and a half martial arts class.
Wow.
I didn't have the time, and I
Yeah,
was too
too
tired.
busy.
Let somebody else do the laundry.
I love that. That is fantastic. Well, good for you. So
Thanks.
let's talk your books a little bit.
Oh yeah. Okie doke.
You are an author.
I
So tell
am.
me now, your first book, you have 3 books?
No, two.
2 books.
Two.
Okay. Okay. So your first book just has a fabulous long title. Is what
Yeah,
I
it's
love.
a
Yes,
really
I love
long
it.
title with a lot of iterations.
Yes. So forever fit and flexible, feeling fabulous at 50 and beyond. I love
Yes.
that. Okay. So
Thank you.
tell me about that.
So the book is, when I had my clinic or my office, and I was helping so many people, teaching them the things that I taught myself to get out of pain and be as functional as possible. And with all of my experience as a physical therapist and working with people, as well as my own personal experience as a chronic pain patient and the recovery, with all the additional trainings that I took after I graduated with the Pilates, certification or the training,
Right.
Something called Feldenkrais, I did that. Even with the martial arts training and the dance training, it all comes down to movement. I am a physical therapist who hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food. Okay.
Well, it is. So
I know,
okay.
I know, really. I usually get that response, but I love to move. And
Yeah.
everybody loves to move if they can find the right thing that just, resonates with them, that fills their soul with joy when they do it, and that really, makes them happy and puts a smile on their face. And there are so many different movement modalities to do.
Yeah.
So what I do in the book is, I take away the judgment. So we talk about mindset, attitude, setting your goals, put away the, going to the gym and all that stuff. Don't listen to that. You don't, unless you love going, just don't go.
Yeah.
Start moving more, move better, move with intention. And then in the middle of the book, I include some movement lessons that people can do, like exploratory movements, to connect with their body again and to find that mind-body connection. And, give some recommendations you might want to try, different Pilates, Feldenkrais, Tai Chi is a beautiful one. Some people love yoga. I don't. But try it if it's something that resonates with you. There are so many different things out there that you can try. Another lady I talked to does something called Kayut yoga, which is very similar to Feldenkrais, which is what I do. So there's just so much out there. So just keep exploring. And, so that's basically what the book is about. I give you tips about how to monitor your progress, get a buddy. Things are always better when you have a friend or two.
Yes.
You could support each other, start a walking group, I hate journaling, but I don't mind taking notes. So you might want to take notes or a little diary of what you're doing. And if you have any questions, you can give me a call or, connect with me and we'll talk.
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay. Talk about ninja.
Woo. Okay. The title is The Reluctant Ninja: How a Middle-Aged Princess Became a Warrior Queen. I love long titles.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous.
Thank you. We just uploaded it to Amazon today, but it still won't be available until I get my sample book and, make sure everything's okay. So it's basically going to be out in another week or two. And that chronicles my journey into this crazy, world of men and martial arts and my experience and what happened. And there's a lot of really funny stories in it. So it's not a downer, it does give the downer part, but it goes back and forth to when I was having a severe test of faith, not sure if I wanted to continue on with my training or call it quits. And going back to Los Angeles to train with Mark's sensei. So my sensei's sensei, I went there by myself for 3 days, threw myself at the feet of the master and says, I don't care what you do to me.
Yeah.
But, if I survive, then, in my mind, I didn't tell him this.
Right.
If I survived, that was my answer. I'd continue to train. If he broke me, that was my answer. I was done.
Wow.
So that's all in the book.
You survived.
I did.
That is amazing. And so by the time people are listening to this, I just want to make you aware the Reluctant Ninja will be available. So yes, that is just so exciting. I love it. Now, Cheryl, I could talk to you for hours more. And I have a feeling we will at some point. So. Yes. But how do people find you?
Well, you can go to my website, which is www.cherylilov.com. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you have access to 3 audio recordings that are me talking you through some movement lessons, just so you can kind of get an idea. They're only 20 minutes long, get an idea of how you can be able to connect with your body again, if that's something that interests you, if it does, and if it doesn't, and you can always unsubscribe. My newsletter comes out once a month, a few tips, on fitness, wellness, health, recipes, some kind of fun stuff. Yeah.
Great.
Really fun stuff. So you do that. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. Just look up Cheryl Ilov, ILOV. There's only one of me.
Yes.
You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm probably, anyway, yeah. Facebook and Instagram, I'm fairly active, but not as much as I could be.
Yeah. Oh, you're busy.
I am. Yeah.
That's okay. I would rather have you out there doing all the things than sitting on social media anyway. So good for you. Yeah. Good for you. That is awesome. You. So final question.
Sure.
What does resilience mean to you?
Oh, resilience means just never giving up. I have a hard time with resilience because I think I pair it up with tenacity. Tenacity and incomparable stubbornness.
Yes. Yes.
And that's really what resilience is to me. And sometimes when you're really at rock bottom and you think you want to give up, you can't give up. There's that little bit of resilience that's just pushing you, that says, come on now. It's not time. You are not done yet.
Oh, I love it. Well, you are so inspiring. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I have loved every second of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I have another new BFF. This is wonderful.
Yes. Yes.
I just love talking to you.
I am not going to say mean things to you. So
I know you won't.
We will continue to be BFFs. Yes. This is awesome.
And I am looking forward to having you on my show. So
cannot wait.
We'll have a lot more fun. Yes. We'll keep this collaboration going.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. I appreciate it. And thank you for listening to Resilience in Life and Leadership. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Please share with anyone you think will benefit from this podcast.